I did it.
I can see you.
Yay.
How are we doing?
I am tired, but I'm here.
Beautiful soul. Saravana, share to you. I'm just going to grab my little cup of tea. I've rearranged everything and then I've left the tea behind. Story of my life right now. This is my second cup of tea and I threw it into a jar so I could bring it up to the cottage because I went to the trouble of reboiling the kettle and everything. I mean, it's a saga. How are we doing, beautiful ladies?
Good.
Not too bad. Job hunting. So it's a little tense for me because I'm a broke graduate, so I'm trying to find a job as quickly as possible.
Interesting. So you're working on job manifestation at the moment then?
Big time.
Let me have a look to see. Hold on a second. Let me just close down because I know we are in a phase of Libra, but I'm not sure if we've switched. Oh, we're in a Scorpio phase. Sagittarius.
That's me.
Oh, hang on. It's a full moon in Scorpio.
Mm.
Okay. Scorpio is quite cunning if you wanted to work with it for employment. I'll just have a look at the astrological hour and the timing. Today, I would recommend working within the hours of the sun, Jupiter, and perhaps even Mars if you really need some intensity behind you. And
Okay.
You're in the US, are you, Pam?
Yeah, I am.
So you would be on a Thursday night. It's Thursday night-ish afternoon there for you?
6 p.m. right now.
Yes, okay. So you're entering into Friday, which is ruled by Venus. So you can use all of that to your benefit. So Venus is for like love, passion, beauty, those types of things. But you also want to find a job that you love so you can cross-pollinate those two energies and do your workings on a Friday, passionate working on a Friday. And if you work with the sun is all about radiance and expansion. Jupiter is the one that will bring you fortune. And it's the one that's most closely associated with the Archer, which is Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign that's going to, help you to be quite savvy in your approach. So you've got lots and lots of options there, but the moon is good. Hello, darling. The moon's going to close out. It's going to be full, and then it's going to go into a waning Sagittarius moon. And if you can't get yourself sorted until then work with the waning phase of the Sagittarius moon to remove any blockages so that it sort of clears your path. So what you would be doing from say Friday onto the full moon time is opening up your pathways, calling things to you. And what you'd be doing after the full moon is a road opener.
Okay.
So help to open your roads.
Okay, I'm going to try that. Thank you.
A red hot go. I'm a big fan of road opener, and it has been said that the road opener is the only spell that you'll ever need to know. That's how good it is. How are we, beautiful? Jillian and Angela, how are you?
Good.
So we're talking employment magic just very briefly there for Pam, who is a graduate on the job hunt. So welcome, beautiful ladies. I'll give it a few minutes. It's only just hit 9 o'clock here. I have extended the length of this live stream because I was bored trying to fit it into 30 minutes. And so we have some extra time around us, and that's great. The focus of today's live stream is, of course, we have possums. Yeah, we have possums on the roof. The focus, that was a bit random. The focus of today's live stream is to have a type of ritual campfire session. And what this is designed to do is to allow us to recalibrate, debrief, and discuss the two primary rituals that the Coven has just undergone. Now, keeping in mind, not everyone will have participated in both rituals, and some might not have participated in any, but they will all be welcome, and the types of conversations that we'll be having today will be tailor-made in instrumental, more to the point, in nurturing those who haven't come through and giving some alternative perspectives to those who did go through these initiations and rituals. So I thought that I would set the tone there for you now so that you have an opportunity to marinate on some of the things that you might want to discuss and, bring forth, and then we'll start to really get in. I'm not sure how many people will be able to attend today. 9 o'clock time zones and things of that nature can always wreak a bit of havoc, but I'll just give it a red hot minute, and you guys can feel free to talk amongst yourselves if you want while I'm doing my thing over here. I might mute my audio and my mic so that I can.
Okay. I just went and grabbed my Coven journal while I remembered.
Where is everybody?
Where are we?
Yeah.
I am in Sydney. I know Avalon's in Tasmania. Where are you located, Pam?
Kansas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for now. We'll see where I end up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm originally from South Australia, and I actually just spent the last week and a half in South Australia, so
Cool.
yeah.
I'm in, hi everyone. I'm brand new to the Coven, and I'm from New York. So I'm in Queens, New York City.
Okay.
Yeah.
So am I, guess, at least.
I'm sorry, say it again.
So am I. I'm new too. So, hey.
Oh, nice. Yes. I think I saw your intro video.
And Jenny Lynn, where are you located?
I'm in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Nice.
Way out west.
Oh, wow. You have so many crystals in your room.
I do have a crystal collection.
Yes.
Oh, wow. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I have a spears fetish, so I have quite a few crystals.
Yeah, I've got lots of
Oh, yeah.
spheres all around. All around. But, yeah.
I love spears. I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
You have smoke?
My favorite one, I've got a big charoite sphere, but it's all the way over there. I can't reach it.
Okay.
But yes, there's something I really like about the energy of spheres. It's just,
Yeah.
So I completely understand your little
Fetish,
like-
yeah.
Yes, I call it an addiction. I
Yeah,
went
me
into
too,
the
really.
other day, and I said, well, you see, I've got an addiction, so I'm not looking for anything in particular, just whatever wants to come home with me.
Yep. I do that. They just fit in the hand so nicely, so you can just sit and be with them for a while.
Definitely. And I play with my crystals, so like this is my Coven crystal, and I'll just like spin it around like this over.
Oh, yeah, I do that.
It's like a fidgety thing.
Actually, I ought to grab mine.
Jenilyn, did you do an intro video recently?
Not recent. I was one of the first members.
Okay, gotcha.
Joined, so it's old.
Going through all the videos. So Pam, I don't know if you actually did a video. I'm like trying to get acclimated to everyone in the
Was the video supposed to go in Facebook?
Say that again?
Was the video supposed to be uploaded on Facebook?
Yeah, I guess if you're, yeah, that's where it would go.
Just to the Facebook group, the Coven. Yeah.
Not everyone has done videos. Some people have just done like a post with photos and like a written like post about them. Like we originally it was like a rule of everyone had to post an intro video, but there were some people that were really opposed to the idea. So we all agreed that we didn't think it was a priority that it needed to be a video if it was something that was going to cause a lot of distress to somebody. But to be honest, I don't even remember everyone's video.
No.
So, I mean, because I've I was there from the very start, so I've watched so many videos. So it's nice to come on here face to face and kind of learn more about people a little bit more. You kind of get to know them a bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I think I was kind of going through video on video, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna, in time, I'll put faces to names. So it was important for me to kind of jump on here live. So yeah, it is nice. It is a very different kind of dynamic. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And it's nice to have more people to talk to. It was funny. I'm in Avalon's book club, and there was a book club live. And so I jumped on, and we were waiting for everyone. And in the end, it was just me and Avalon. So we just got to have a nice little one-on-one chat. It was good.
It's so funny. Was that the most recent one?
Yes.
By chance? Because I was looking, I saw the date. I'm going through Patreon, just, you know, kind of going through videos, and I didn't see a video for it. I saw like the date, and there was no video posted. And I was going to actually today, I was like, is there a video? And that was probably the one, right?
It was just me and Avalon chatting, and half of it was about Coven stuff. So that's why, like, at first I think I was like, oh, I'll be careful what I say in case it's put on, like, you know, for the book club. And then I think, like, we just kind of realized, like, it's not getting uploaded. So we're just talking about whatever.
Oh, that's so cool. What quality time. That's nice.
Yeah. So I was like, please have more people this time. Like, yeah. Because, I mean, you know, especially like for Avalon to, you know, set aside that time because she's so busy.
For sure.
It's nice to actually have more than just one person connecting and interacting, you know?
Yeah. Has she been playing around with different times to kind of see what times? It's tricky. Yeah, it's worldwide.
It's very tricky. Yeah, like in Australia right now, it's 9 a.m.
a.m. right?
So of course, I know India's at work. I think Rhiannon's got the day off. I think Rhiannon's going to jump on at some time, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so it's tricky. Like I took the day off because I, you know, came back Wednesday night, was tired. Thursday, I just cleaned my house.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the day off. I'm just going to kind of relax.
So that's how you're able to be here. I gotcha. And for me, I was so confused. I was like, am I doing the time zone thing right? So I checked like 5 times. And so it's a good time in New York because it's 7 p.m.
Oh, that's
Thursday.
Good.
Yeah. It's Friday for you, right? Friday morning? Okay, yeah. So it's Thursday, yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be some people which it doesn't suit. So, you know, you can't please everyone. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. I'm looking at your necklace. That's from the Witch's Roots, right?
Yes.
I just got my first one.
This is my first one too, and I really love it. Yep. Especially, I work a lot with Athena, and so you can have a look at that. You've got the owl, you've got the moon, and the branch, and this is like a reproduction of an ancient Athenian coin, and you see that's very much where they got the inspiration from.
Oh, get out. Was that in the box or that you just had?
No, this one is I bought this. I've got a few of these.
Okay.
Because it's special for me to have this. Because I work so much with Athena, that she's my matron at the moment. I've got all these little kind of what's the word? Kind of like gifts. Yeah, like gifts to have around and remind me of her. But that's what it reminded me of, and I was like, yes, I love this. So
it's so beautiful.
I haven't taken it off since I got it, so I love it. So yeah, I put a post on my Instagram, and I was like, I don't think I'm spoiling it for anyone because I'm in Australia, and like, you know, we're the last people to get anything. So.
Yeah.
And it got delivered when I was on my holiday, so yeah.
Oh, it was a gift when you got back.
Yes, it was great.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Oh, Amy, we see you. Hopefully it lets you in. Because I saw Amy put up a comment saying that she had trouble accessing the last ones.
Oh, yes, I think I saw that too, that she never got in except once, right?
Yes. So we see your name, Amy. Hopefully it lets you in.
I think I just need to remember to make sure I turn on the alerts because that's how you guys.
Oh.
Pam, you went out. If you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Sound cut out.
I wonder if I should put my earphones on.
I use Zoom a lot, and headphones generally solve a lot of problems when they arise.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
I use Zoom a lot too for school stuff, work stuff, but usually it's clear. So I don't know if it's my.
We hear you now. You're fine now. It's just like you cut out.
That's so weird. Okay.
I can see Avalon is doing the switching,
Somebody's video's lost.
getting into sacred space. I love it. It's just something special about seeing witches work. I love it. Though my incense is burnt out, but that's okay. If I put too much incense on in my room, my whole room just gets really smoky.
Smoked out.
Okay?
Yeah, fire alarms. I set one off last time I tried to do something. So
Oh,
freaked my sister out when she was in the bathroom taking a shower.
yeah, I lived in student housing for a few years, and I wasn't allowed to burn anything. And it was like, if you accidentally set off a fire alarm, it's like a $2,000 fine. So I was like, I'm not taking that chance. So now I'm in a house with like the fire alarms are far away. It's like all of the candles, all of the incense,
All the
making up
things.
for lost time.
Yep. I told my sister, at least you know your stuff works. So hey.
Oh, I see Rhiannon. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's not a chat here. So I don't know if Amy can hear us or if she's just not able to connect.
Wait, do you want me to text her? We can chat, right?
Because I can see Amy's name there, but I'm not sure if she can actually see or hear us.
I can now.
Oh, Rhiannon, hey!
Sorry, guys. Stuck in the elevator, but I made it.
Yay!
I did a thing.
I did do a thing. How exciting.
Did a thing. I don't know what I did, but I did it.
Yep, I made it.
I have to do differently. My leg's killing me because I got a tattoo touched up, and so I'm trying not to sit on it.
Ow.
It was a spontaneous thing that I wasn't planning, and now it's like, oh, I have to sit really awkwardly.
Sorry, I know that feeling. I am waiting to get my next one. I am super excited.
See, I went in with my mum because my mum is like covered in tattoos, and I got this one done 2 years ago. And I mentioned something about the ink not taking. And so while I was there, the guy was just like, got the apprentice and was just like, oh yeah, just like fix up her tattoo for her. And it's like, I'm a really anxious person. I hate needles. I hadn't psyched myself up for this.
I know the feeling.
Oh, soft.
Oh, what is that? Oh, I know why. See, the thing that's tricky with Zoom is there's like a button you can press where it's like it just dials like a random number. And so I think that's what that random number is.
Oh.
But I don't know.
I mean, I just thought of it as like a reference number in case. You mean the ID number?
Or sometimes it's a person's cell phone number, I think. Like if they don't have a name attached to their Zoom account, it might come through as a phone number.
Oh yeah, because Amy's still here. Oh yeah, Amy's here. She can hear us. Yay. So there is a chat. Oh. I'm learning more every time I go on here.
Yeah, and in the chat, you can chat like to one person privately, or you can just do to the whole group.
Oh, okay.
You can?
Yeah, like if you go to the chat, you see where it says everyone in blue, and then there's like a little drop down arrow, and then there's each person's name. And if you just select the name, you can just directly message them, or you can go back to everyone.
Oh,
Oh,
that's fancy.
I don't know any of this. And then how do I? Oh, pop that. Oh, there we go. That worked.
There's Elba.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Let's see. I can't see.
So is that
Can you
Elba?
turn
That's
on your
the
camera,
random
Elba?
numbers.
Got it.
No,
Oh, hi.
Elba's there.
I'm
I
here.
can
Who else is here? Oh, hi everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Don't mind me. I'm gonna get some food to eat while we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grabbed Coven Journal, Coven Crystal.
Yes.
I've got my peppermint tea.
It is. I have just finished my morning shift,
Oh, nice.
so I go back to work in like 4 hours.
Yeah, that's the advantage of your job. I had to take the day off.
Yes. Have my ice cream. I'm good to go.
Okay, I hear Rhiannon. The unmistakable voice of Riri. Hi, Riri.
Hi. Me and my ice
How are
cream.
we?
already.
How are we? So who have we got here? We've got 9 participants according. Hang on, I'll see if I can full screen. Whoa, that just got real. 9 participants. I see. Oh, there we go. It's also clunky when you're learning something for the first time, isn't it? It's quite fun.
We only got to see the chat, so there we go.
So what's the go with Amy? Are we not able to get her on camera?
She's
No,
having dinner.
Amy's.
Oh.
Yeah, she's having dinner.
Oh,
And
okay.
then as soon as she finishes dinner, she'll jump on.
Okay, so shall we begin, beautiful souls? Shall we get started with the topic of this conversation, which I was previously saying is to be focused on initiation and the Odin's sacrifice for those who have gone through one or both of those ritual experiences and for those who haven't. So I'm just saying this in terms of the language that you use. So these types of experiences can be quite confronting during the process, but and I think a lot of people, new to the craft individuals find it very uncomfortable launching into such practices. And then the experience that takes place when they do take that leap of faith and go through that process and come out on the other side, it's a richness of wisdom and experience that they're given. But there are still so many that are on the opposite side going, I don't know about this. This looks dodgy. I don't connect with Odin. I don't know about these initiations. And there can be a certain amount of emotion, a little bit of shadow, some trepidation. And what I would like to say about that specifically is that that is a perfect array of emotion. If it was friendly, it wouldn't be witchcraft. If it didn't pull at the emotional heartstrings, if it didn't cause you that little bit of trepidation, then it wouldn't be witchcraft. And if you felt totally unbelievably comfortable, there could be 2 reasons for that. One is you might not necessarily be in the right space of mind, or 2, you just have oodles of experience and that shit doesn't bother you. So there's 2 ways that you can look at that. But it is an emotive thing. And when we go through these beautiful rites of passage, these beautiful ritual experiences, it actually transforms the spirit. You may be aware of it straight away, or it may be something that slowly works internally on you. It sort of creeps up, and in weeks and months to come, you might find yourself having some of these like rather strange and magical aha moments, like, there's that lesson repeated in this moment, and my behavior or my attitude towards that lesson was totally unique and totally different to how it, has always been. Or, wow, I really connected with this new energy stream that's coming into my life right now. because of the work that I did during those rites of passage. I mean, these are just two of a myriad of examples that I could give you, because each ritual is designed to nourish the spirit. Of course, you as the persona, you'll always remember this ritual experience that you have, but it still continues to slowly work on you. You don't just walk through the halls of Odin and that's it. Like it's not the last time you'll ever work with him. It's not the last time you'll ever hear his voice whisper in your ear or see his crows or experience that. At any point in your spiritual journey as a witch, you can interact with Odin. What we've done is open up those pathways for interaction. And what I will continue to do throughout the course of Coven work is open up those pathways to many, many different deities. This is not to say that those who are secular in their practice need to feel on the outside of that, because there are many ways of working with deity that do not need to be anthropomorphized, personified, or even, a patron kind of experience. You can work with the wisdom of a deity, with the narrative of the deity, the mythology of the deity, without necessarily giving it a form and bringing the full concept into your life. So if you're secular, you're not on the outskirts, there's room for everyone in these types of practices. The idea here is to connect with the old world wisdom that belonged to this earth and to the various geographical locations that had that richness of experience during times where, recording details of such things were not even possible. We see remnants of those in standing circles. We see remnants of those in songs, in landscapes, and in just the culture and the richness of wisdom of particular geographical locations. Spirits of place are yet another thing that remind us of the magic that once took place in an area. And so there is so much to working with rites of passage and ritual experiences, and they open up those little doors and windows to different parts of the world, to different parts of ourselves. They help us to glean new concepts and to be able to access individual wisdom. And that's the most beautiful part about it, is that what Odin means to me is not necessarily what Odin will mean to you, because our experiences while we're sharing the ritual will be unique to one another. The way in which we were raised, the language in which we speak, the area in which we live will all give us a unique perspective on deity. And especially that experience with Odin, you'll come at that experience with Odin with everything that you know, both consciously and subconsciously, about Odin. You might not realize this, but pop culture will actually help to frame your approach to Odin, because he is so prolific in modern culture. The TV show The Vikings, the blockbuster movie Thor, like you have these, he's there in pop culture, and you will no doubt reference that whether you realize it or not. And that's perhaps the most beautiful thing, is we almost always have an understanding or an idea of many of what I'm going to now call popular deities. And I'm very careful saying that because there is, pantheon upon pantheon. Every single part of our big, beautiful earth is connected to a pantheon. Some are well known, some are lesser known. But for the more well-known pantheons, the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, for instance, the Norse, to name but a few, we have a slight understanding thanks to pop culture, thanks to story, thanks to travel, which we're able to do these days. And it is a beautiful thing. So we will be somewhat prepared. And I like to go for, and I do this meaningfully and carefully, is I try to choose those from a more popular pantheon, simply because it is easier to connect. There will be times where I'm going to throw in one that's really unique, and you'll be like, what the fuck? Where does this, I've never heard this name before in my life. Where is this deity? Where is this spirit come from? And that's where a deeper layer of learning can take place. But all that aside, I would like to now focus on Odin. And I would like to hand over the microphone to those who have gone through the Odin sacrifice and who want to share something that occurred to them, something that was apparent, something that they experienced, in that ritual capacity that may be of tremendous benefit, or just something that they wish to share to kind of recalibrate and take that deep breath out, that like, I've been meaning to talk about that. I've just wanted to get that off my chest. And this is your opportunity to do that. So I'm now going to step back. I'm going to mute my microphone and I'm going to play the part of the observer. And towards the end of this live stream, I am going to pull some cards from this very interesting deck that I have here. And this is particularly special for me because this is a deck that I used to use for, we will call it the healing journey of my coven up north. So every day I would pull a card from this deck and I would share a card individually with each of the women that were in my coven up north. And for months we worked with this deck together as a coven in that way. And it's a very, very special deck to me. It's a deck that needs to be utilized in terms of the guidebook. It's not something that you would necessarily read in an oracular fashion, but it is something that is so, it pulls at your emotion. It pulls at your heartstrings. So I'd like to be able to offer a card to each of you at the end of this live stream. With that said, I shall now step back. Anyone who wishes to speak first is entitled to do so.
I'll go first. So I did the Odin sacrifice when we were supposed to do it. I think it was October. My experience was not anything negative at all, and it was not, as I said, I think I described before, as not extremely earth-shattering either. But I did feel as if I was connecting with him again after never having connected with him in this lifetime, and so possibly in other lifetimes. He was very helpful, and I recall the climbing of the tree was really wonderful because I almost felt like he was helping me to climb the tree. And I came out of that. Like I said, I was always looking for runes in my environment, but no runes showed up. I was always looking and looking because people were saying, oh, I found this rune or I saw this rune. And I was also, trying to become very observant of my environment. I never really saw anything, but I really felt that it was it gave me a lot of security in the sense that I was in the right place, having joined the coven and having had to go through the sacrifice, because he was not friendly but he gave me a sense of knowing that I was in the right place. And he, I think, kept his godlike self before me, but at the same time, it wasn't distant. It was more like saying, you've come back and this is where you to be. So it was a very, I think, positive experience for me. It settled me in the way that I knew I was about to go into initiation. So I felt more settled and knowing that my initiation would be good, and that's kind of what that gave me. So I really was very happy at the end. I want to do it again so that now that I've had more experience in the coven, to maybe ask him questions and things like that. I was more just there to start something brand new, and so I didn't have a lot of questions. I was just taking in the information. But now I have things that I would like to ask or delve more into the path work of going through that initiation again. And I know I will do it again probably in 6 months. So that was my experience. That was it.
Thank you, Elba. That was really, really interesting to hear your experience. I loved the way
Thank
you worded that, how you searched for the runes, but none came to you. And I just wanted to speak on that very briefly, because there are times where we look around in nature, where we look around just in our world. It's not even nature. We can see it in buildings and cars. No matter where you are, you can see runes in your perspective. If you look at your phone, you're going to see runes because they form the Bluetooth logo. And they're just there. They're just everywhere. And then when we call the runes to us and none are apparent, it's almost like the veil comes down and you're like, no. I consider that to be one of those moments that are quite sacred, in the sense that you withdraw from the world, you withdraw from that outer world, and you look at your runes, you cast them out and you turn them all upside down, you meditate hard and you pull 3. And then it's the world of weird at the end of the day. You're sort of more connecting with the Norns in that capacity. And it can be a richness of experience that is a little bit different to that of seeing the runes out in the world. And there's many ways in which we can choose our runes. Some are chosen for us, some we see out in nature, and some we take control in that practice. We have an autonomy over that experience. And there is a time and a place for both of those approaches. But I found that very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Elba. Who would like to speak next, please?
I can go.
Awesome.
Alan. So during my Odin sacrifice, I found my runes in. So all of mine belonged to my body. They were already on myself. I did start off like lots of people trying to look out into the environment, and I found that I spent a lot of time staring at myself being like, why can't I get this? Why can't it make sense? And then one day it just hit me and I was like, oh my God, I have tiny Gabos like all over my hands. What is this? So I have Gabo, Othala, and Daggers all in my palms, and they were the runes that I ended up with. So I was really, really happy with that. My Odin was not that hard so much. It wasn't hard as in like I struggled with the sacrifice part. I more struggled with, this is a deity that I didn't know. So I spent a lot of time doing research. I spent a lot of time writing, drawing, connecting, trying to get out into the environment to find where Odin sits within my biosphere kind of thing. Because I'm very much an outside person rather than trying to work it out from the internet. I tried to work it out from the environment. Turns out Odin's not so big on the outside thing. So it ended up being a lot of meditation for me, a lot of sitting, a lot of being with myself, focusing on why I was sacrificing what I was sacrificing. And I sacrificed 3 things. So I sacrificed sugar, I sacrificed takeout, and I sacrificed no. So I no longer said no to exercise. I no longer said no to laziness. I no longer said no to pretty much everything. So people were asking me, come to the gym with me. And I was like, yes. it's I've had a full day of work, but yes. Hey, everything was yes. And then leading up to initiation, that really put me in the right kind of mind frame to open up to initiation, because my mind frame was already, even if I don't want to, yes, let's give it a go. Let's still try. Let's still push through. And it led to the most amazing initiation stuff. I actually had a redo of my Odin sacrifice before I got sick. So I went through again and I looked at the runes that I worked with, and I looked at my work with Gibo, and I realized that particularly that first rune, traveled through the last 6 months with me incredibly. So Gibo's all about the give and take of gifts, and how you have to receive something, you have to give something, and it has to be this reciprocity. And all of my life I'm a giver, so I just give it all away and be like, here you go, you have it. Do you need it? Here, have it. Emotionally, physically, mentally, everything. And over the last 6 months I've been like, no, what are you giving me in return? What am I getting out of this in order to put this forward? If there's no return, why am I doing it? Why am I giving all of these things over for nothing back? And during my initiation, I lost my keepsake. And I was like totally devastated about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I gave it over in order to continue to receive this knowledge. So to continue to connect, to continue to understand what's happening, I had to give that up and let it be gone. So I found that really, really interesting.
I love that you found the runes on your hands. That's really sweet. My son looks to his hands for the runes. He's very cute like that.
They're all in there.
That's beautiful. That's really, really nice. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rhiannon. Would anyone else like to share any experiences that they may have had? Welcome to Kelsey, and Belinda jumped in through the middle of some conversations. So welcome to the both of you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We are currently speaking on the Odin sacrifice and sharing some of our thoughts and our experiences, and sort of just debriefing in all of its glory. So if you have anything that you would like to say, you can have a little think about it and share when you're ready. Would anyone else like to speak on the subject of the 9-day sacrifice? Perfectly timed.
I can talk about mine.
Sure.
So the first time I did the Odin sacrifice, I had a lot of resistance. I'd never worked with Odin before. I rarely worked with like male deity, and I felt like Odin was really just like pushing back. And there was actually, I forget what, I put up a post when it happened. I did a meditation, and I remember getting something like the words like "get out" or "get lost" were like just like thrown at me. And I was like, okay then.
I actually remember that post, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. And after having chats, I remember I mentioned that to, it was either Rhiannon or it was Rhiannon's mum, India, and they were like, you know what, that's Odin, is you got to work for it. And so they were telling me this in between the second time I did the Odin sacrifice. But my first Odin sacrifice, yeah, it was really rough. It was like I was having all these like, not necessarily near-death experiences, but like brushes to really remind me of my mortality. Like there were times when I think I nearly got hit by like 2 cars, and I was in a room that I don't know if I got struck by lightning, but the whole room lit up, and I had like electrical wires in there. I was doing science teaching, and so I had all these like really crazy like experiences that reminded me of my own mortality, and I was just like, okay, I get that you're a powerful god. I get that maybe I'm really going to work for this. And so the first time it was very much that learning about Odin, realizing what Odin is capable of. So I was studying the runes and sort of figuring out where I could get information from. But my actual sacrifice went for longer than 9 days, because what it was is the day of the sacrifice that it started was the day that my boyfriend went to army training boot camp. So he was actually gone for a month and a bit. So my Odin sacrifice lasted a month and a bit, and I had all these interesting experiences for the month and a bit. And again, it was that relearning of how to kind of live on my own, because I hadn't done that in such a long time. So that was really intense, but really valuable. And like others have said, it really prepared me for initiation. I was so ready for initiation. I also kind of feel like part of the Odin sacrifice was that idea of like letting yourself go back to like being wild. Like I'm naturally quite like, I mean, I've got Greek ancestry. You look at my dad and he's just like, I could shave 2 days ago and you wouldn't know. So it was like after a week of me not shaving, I was just like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for initiation. I'm ready for that cleansing shower afterwards and just getting myself back, seeing myself. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. The second time was more relaxed and not as intense. And I put that down to the fact that my sacrifice wasn't as big. My sacrifice this time around was unnecessary spending. And there were times when I actually sort of bent the rules, because I had changed it from being no unnecessary spending to I can spend if it's going to mean that I can create. So I bought a beeswax candle making kit to make rolled beeswax candles, so I didn't have to buy spell candles. I forget what else I bought. And it was just, there was a few little things that I was like, I'm going to make an exception. And I feel like that's probably why I didn't get as much out of it this time. But having said that, I also still, I was able to go back and reconnect with my original 3 runes. And I connected with 3 more runes because I was one of those people. I kept seeing manners, or manners. I still keep seeing manners, like all around me. So clearly that's got a message for me. But yeah, I feel like the first time was much more intense. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I felt more emotional this time. I had a lot of I feel like my emotions were rising and falling. I just remembered the other thing was after I bought something that I kind of bent the rules for, I came out into the kitchen that night, and I had, like, I kid you not, I had about 200 maggots on the floor of my kitchen that just appeared out of nowhere. And I was just like, all right, I'm taking this as a sign. This is my punishment. Yeah, so again, it's that thing of, I get a lot of really strong messages working with Odin. Yeah. He makes you work for it. He definitely makes you work for any kind of wisdom that you receive.
He certainly does, and I think that some of that too is that, and this is across the board too, for any deity that you have personally never connected with. You've just never connected with them. You don't walk up to someone's door, knock on it, they don't open it and go, oh, yeah, come in, come have a cup of coffee. I mean, they do in Tasmania, but most places they don't. And it's a matter of, like, getting to know. It's about creating boundaries, creating a dialogue, understanding a narrative. Because as I've previously stated, the way one person views Odin is not the way that we will all view Odin. I have had experiences in ritual with my older coven where they have felt that Odin was, he was so universal. He was both man and woman all rolled into one. And I never got that from him at all. I got intensely masculine, but with a type of warmth that was coated in a very hard outer shell. And my very first Odin sacrifice was some eight or so years ago. The time doesn't matter. It was a while ago. And what I personally did at that time was I went out with a large group of pagans, and we went to a place called Crystal Cascades. And there, what we were doing is we were diving in the waterfall for the runes that we were going to use to make our own rune set for our Odin sacrifice. And so that is exactly what we did. In that process, hardly anyone walked away with a full set of runes. There was just, I like uniformity, and I couldn't find stones that were the same. And I realized that that was my first mistake, because every rune is different. Every rune carries through a different energy. So I should have just intuitively picked it up. But you can't live in that should have mind frame either. And so I thought, I'm going to do this differently next time. But as someone who doesn't connect very deeply with water, that's the realm of Oshun in my family's pantheon. And I'm a little bit more fire than I am fresh water. Then I found that to be just a pathway that didn't quite work for me in that regard. But it was a really meaningful pathway in the sense that those who did make their runes out of that beautiful Crystal Cascades waterfall kept their runes in water. And water forever became that connection to Odin. So the stones embedded in a bowl of water that would be changed every lunar cycle, written in silver paint pen, that kind of thing, and sitting in the water. And when we would go over to do a rune study session, for instance, we would have to pull a rune from the water. And this young lady that belonged to my coven up north, she would go through the trouble of going to the Crystal Cascades, getting buckets of water just to put in those runes, because she thought, if I don't use that same water, the energy of these stones is going to die. And she went so deep with that, and that forever became her experience with Odin. And that's such a unique experience in and of itself. Angela, yours was near-death experiences. Such a unique experience. Rhiannon, yours was finding the runes on your body. And that's such a unique experience. And that's the idea behind these types of rites of passage, of these rituals, is that it brings out the unique experience. And the more open you are to it, the more exacerbated those experiences become. And a lot of understanding and recognizing the images, the messages, the interactions that you're having with spirit in that capacity is actually opening yourself up, like removing those walls. And that in itself is the hardest thing to do. We all have walls. We all have those little boundaries when it comes to spirit. Some we know of, some are instilled in us at a young age and we are completely unaware. Some come from old religions. Some come through a lack of confidence and a sense of disbelief. And so working on those things, if you're ever having trouble with ritual, ever having trouble with spirit, ever having trouble with, psychic connections and developing your intuitive faculties and anything to do with that, the work on the self that can be done first to really pull down, the bricks in that wall and make space for a much more fuller experience, that is always the best way to go about it. So if you're ever in these positions and you're having some trouble and you're not getting much, then turn to the self and ask that deity. In this instance, we're talking of Odin. Ask Odin to highlight the blocks in your consciousness, in your spiritual consciousness. I've done that once and I was shocked. I was a sobbing mess for 9 days. Every time I woke up, I had a new realization, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm just crap. And it was really quite cathartic, actually, in a way. So after the end of those 9 days, when I'd sacrificed all animal products, sugars, I was just on a solid plant-based diet. I was feeling discombobulated because I was no longer eating everything that I usually eat. And I was highly, highly emotional. And I realized in that moment that was probably my best experience with Odin, because it took me internal. It took me to a place where I created a little sanctuary for myself, where I felt incredibly childlike and vulnerable. I'm not a person that cries at the drop of a hat. I probably cry maybe twice a year. I'm just not a sobby type of person, but I was in this situation. And as I was previously stating, with the situation with the waterfall and me not having that connection to water, that's indicative of my shadow element. That's a part of my shadow element. And I'm just not naturally emotional. So when I went there, even though I was standing in the waterfall, I'm like, nah, can't do this. But my next go at it was, I was a sobbing mess. So the water came out of me in the end anyway. And I thought, maybe he is associated to water. But these are the things that I have thought about in my personal practice. And there will be others where they will say, no, he's associated to the wind. He is a wind deity. And no one's wrong. Nobody's wrong. However he chooses to come to you is through your power element or your shadow element. That is one thing that I now know for myself with every certainty. And the way he chooses to communicate with you is measured on the basis of how open and closed you are. I'm not sure if many of you are reading the Communing with Ancestors book that is a part of the Magickal library. There's a little bit in the introduction of that book that really relates to the way that sometimes people interact with spirit. Is that the author, in this case Raven Grimacy, he was approached by a friend to write this book, and he thought, no, I don't have this book in me. And then his wife said, why don't you write this book? No, I don't have this book in me. Then his friend comes back later on, why don't you write this book? Nah, I don't have a book in me. And there was all this resistance. No, I don't have this book. Then his wife they were having a nice little moment over breakfast. Why don't you write this book? He's like, no, I just don't have a book in me. That was the final stage. They both hop in the car. And as they're about to get out of the car, there came a big white truck. and all it had written on the side was ancestor. That was it. They were both bearing witness to this truck, and they thought, in that moment, he just thought, I guess I'm writing a book. And what he said in regards to that was, there are some times where I feel like I need to be hit by a truck to notice that spirit is speaking to me. And this is the case for many, many out there, even the most experienced, most adept, because spirit speaks in the most unpredictable ways. And if you're only open to one form, if you're waiting for some kind of sign, if you're waiting for a whisper in your ear, if you're waiting for it to come through the presence of animals, for instance, it's not going to happen the way you want it to. That's the main gist of it. It will always happen in a way that is unique, slightly uncomfortable, and wildly unpredictable. And that's the best part of it. And the way that it happens one time will not necessarily be the way that it happens the second time, because at the end of the day, spirit, as with all things, is unpredictable. The only constant stream of communication that occurs with a deity occurs between you and a matron and a patron. And you've worked hard for that, so the door remains open and the language remains the same. Other than that, when we're experimenting with other deities, it's always different, it's always unique. Would anyone else like to say something in regards to the Odin sacrifice? Tatiana, how are you? Welcome.
Let me unmute myself. Hi, I'm doing fine.
That's wonderful. We're just in the process of talking about our individual 9-day sacrifices to Odin. If there is anything that you would like to say. Excuse me.
I didn't do it this time around. I got a lot of I ended up in the ER. Everybody seemed to be getting sick in the Coven around that time for some reason. So, but last time when I did it, which was just interesting, like when I was not sure of if I was going to do it at the moment, because I was like, oh, I'm too busy. I'm not sure if I was going to do it. And then the following day, I see someone walking around with a backpack with a print of all the runes. And I was like, oh, that was hitting the head with a hammer. So that was my cue that I needed to do it. So
that's really exciting. I like that. So it happens so naturally. Jenny Lynn, you are very quiet over there. Is there anything that you would like to contribute to this conversation? Beautiful.
I misunderstood the rune thing, and I put them all in a bowl, and every day I drew out a rune and worked with that rune that day. So I ended up working with 9 runes, completely different from everybody else. But it had its lessons, and I enjoyed it a lot.
That's perfectly fine. And I like that you landed on 9 too, because in the Norse cosmology, there are 9 worlds, and each one holds a venerated value for those in Asatru. I'm not well versed on the 9 worlds. And in fact, I just know that there are 9 worlds, and they all hold a different sort of power, in the same way that a crystal or a plant holds a specific attribute. These Norse 9 worlds hold an exalted power and attribute. So you may have inadvertently just tapped into some of that Norse cosmology aspect. You should look into that. Make a little note to look into that and see if something comes to you and connects to expand your experience. So that'll be really interesting. Kelsey, welcome.
Hello.
Would you like to add something to the conversation of Odin? Did you do the sacrifice? If you didn't, that's totally okay, and you can speak on that as well.
I did not this last time, but I did the first time around, and I felt like he was a father to me. And when I was young, I didn't really have that growing up. So I felt like instant, he's really stern, but I felt like his child. It was crazy.
That's really sweet. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. I've heard that he feels like, because his moniker, so to speak, is the All Father. And
right.
What is a father in its essence? It's different again. Everybody has a different father. Everyone has a different human being that fathered them. And so the experience is yet again quite different. But I like that you had that experience. Well, we are now at 10 o'clock and I would like to switch this conversation over. Well, we're 5 minutes from 10. I would like to switch this conversation over to the initiation. Now, you may feel free to talk about initiation from the first perspective. So there are some who have been here for the first initiation and the second. And so you can choose to speak on either one of those. There are those who have initiated just this time around, which is wonderful and welcome. And there are those who haven't yet initiated. Everyone has a right to speak on their thoughts and feelings regarding initiation. And so I would like to put that out there for those who want to decompress and again, just speak on that experience, to share some of that, some of that essence. So whomever would like to go first, please just take the mic.
Sure, I guess I can say something if y'all can hear me.
We can.
Okay, so as you can see, for me, it was probably one of those, I was not even sure how to connect in any way with what was going on. But what I found was during the initiation, I had very strong ancestral spirit around me during that. So I decided to do it outside, my first ever outside sort of practice. And so, of course, during the whole time, I'm trying to make sure the fires stay on and things are blowing all over the place. I'm thinking, oh my God, if people could see me right now, they'd be like, what the hell? Anyway, so despite all of that, when I was finally able to settle and to meditate on some of the things I was giving up and some of the things that I was welcoming in place, ancestral spirit was the strongest thing I felt. And I've never felt that before. So when I knew that I was going through this process, it felt like I was doing the right thing, if that makes sense. Like I was getting blessings from my ancestral family, that the path I was setting myself on was going to be one that was going to be emotional in a way, because these last few days or weeks since initiation, a lot of different emotions have come up. It's like as if I felt like during the 9-day sacrifice, it felt like I was actually going through some sort of shadow work. It turned into that, which is so interesting. And then the initiation was kind of like letting that go. And then as I continue, I find that I'm gaining strength in terms of being able to do a lot of the shadow elements I have to work through. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but that was kind of, it was unexpected, but beautifully so. By the time all was said and done, I felt like I needed a nap, but it was intense and emotional for me. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. That's really, really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I love that you had the ancestral experience. Yeah. And in many cases, what takes place during a structured rite of passage is that you walk through the walls of the ancestors, and it's especially significant and triggering for those who haven't had an ancestral relationship, so to speak. So the concept of ancestor veneration, remembering of your ancestors, ancestral altars and shrines, the feeding of the dead, and all of those beautiful practices, they take place in many, many cultures up to this day. Western culture has abolished them from their consciousness. There's no commercial value to that. Yeah. But there is always that option to open up that door to ancestor, and we can meet and really journey and connect with our ancestors in these very, very primal ways. A rite of passage, by all intents and purposes, is a primal passage of spirit, and what happens is unique to the individual. I take you to the through the path working, upper, middle, lower. There is magical acts, carving of candles. There are things that you do that create that ritual experience. And every time you do one of those things, it deepens your ritual consciousness. It puts you deeper into that frame of mind. And by the time you get to that path working, it's all about just releasing those final little layers of resistance and having that experience. There are those who have experiences with deity. There are those who have experiences with animals and with plants, and primarily too with ancestors. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful what happened to you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Would anyone else like to speak on the subject of the rite of passage, the initiation?
I'll go.
Wonderful.
So I did my initiation back in November, and the journey pathworking part of it was really, really intense. Avalon, my God. So my journey to the underworld was terrifying. Like, I was so scared for whatever reason. There was a lot of fear, and I opened this door, and there was an old woman, and this room was full of gold and jewelry and all these precious things. And she told me that this is where the items go for those who were buried, and one day my things would be there too. I met my creature, and we went to the middle world, which was so intense. I bawled the entire time. And then we went to the upper world, and I met a woman, a deity, who I think was the Morgan, but I'm not sure. And we like talked a bit, and she put her hands on my head, and I felt this surge of energy. And then the paper on the candle caught fire, and then my smoke alarm just started going off, which was, it just like took me out of it like immediately. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. But I was also like so out of it, because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I was like really tired and really hungry, and just did this intense journey. So that was my experience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think that the concept of the upper, middle, and lower worlds, they're quite triggering, especially if you've had no experience with, say, a shamanism, for instance, because it's a primal, ancient kind of thought process, the upper, middle, and lower worlds. And I remember when I was doing a shamanic journeying workshop with Miss Shaman Mishahu up north. We were all in a room, and she led us down to the lower world. She didn't explain what the lower world was. She just went, follow the drum beat, go, and then she sort of structures it, go down, 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 and then she leaves you hanging and just beats the drum. And I had no idea what to expect, so I thought, this is going to be really interesting. I had some concept of the shamanic 3 worlds, and mine is very Amazon jungle. My lower world just looks like a jungle. There's always a cave, and there's always water. But I was in that room with probably about 15 other people, and some poor lad went to the fiery pits of hell because he had that experience. That was his underworld. And another one was just like in the center of the earth, because they took it very literal. And the experiences across the board was really fascinating to see how each person interpreted the concept of the underworld. And I found that to be quite fascinating. But there is almost like that fool in the tarot kind of energy there, which is the spirit in search of experience who's quietly shitting themselves because they have no idea what they're going into. And in journey space, it's psychological, and we all know how much the brain drives our experiences. So we may perceive pain in our mind and feel it in our body. Our body might not actually be in pain, but we perceive that it should be, and therefore we feel it. And so it can be quite triggering, quite taxing, but I find that to be really, really quite beautiful. And I would also like to speak on the fact that the middle world, you said that you had a really emotional time in the middle world. And the middle world is where the emotion is at. It's the place that you spend the longest time in many cases, because trying to do that job, it's like the KonMari method. Who here sparks joy? Like, who here sparks joy? Who's going to get the chop and who here sparks joy. Not to trivialize the experience, but it really comes down to some of these more basic things, like who here has wronged me? Who can I not forgive? And thinking about that, like who really has done their dash? Who do I just not want in my life anymore? And these are big things to think about in the moment. And then sometimes making that cut, you feel it. You feel it like you've sliced a little bit of your own flesh, and it's a fleeting, sharp experience, but then you release it and you feel all the better for it. But the build-up of that, like we know as adults, we know that cutting someone from our lives is not something that we do necessarily very easy. And it's always an emotional thing. Some people just, fade away, that the time that we've spent with them, that's fine. But there's no kind of knot there. There's no kind of tether to that individual. Your experiences have always been positive, and therefore you've gone your separate ways. But oftentimes the people that we meet within the middle world can be family members. They can almost be ancestral in a way. They can be, the bully in the playground. They can be that, that co-worker that just made our time difficult. They can be the professor who didn't give us that grade that we wanted. And it's not about being petty. It's about those people who have emotionally tethered themselves to you. And that in itself is a really emotional thing to determine who gets the chop and who you could potentially see yourself resolving issues with. It's not an easy thing. So that middle world journey, I think, is one of those really challenging ones. I can't talk due to, I can't stop. What? Does anyone see this from Amy?
Yeah, she can't stop coughing.
Oh. I'll just read this out. I can't talk due to I can't stop coughing. My middle world, I cut cords with my father, and he passed 10 days after initiation. He was in a hospice for 2 years. I'm sick as hell. Oh.
That's intense.
That is so intense. That is so intense. Such a, oh gosh, there's so much to unpack in that one. There really is. And let's just touch on that for a little bit. When we are connected to people through bonds, emotional bonds, and those emotional bonds could be good, they could be bad, our energy is intertwined. We are giving them energy, they are giving us energy. And when we cut that cord, the energy returns to the person whom the energy belongs to. And it separates. So whatever extra energy you're giving through perhaps a misguided love is a perfect example. You love someone so much, they just don't dig you. They just don't appreciate you, and they don't hold you in that same regard. To cut that cord is to return the brunt of love. So some people experience this as a fullness. Oh, once I close that door, I just felt all the pieces of myself return to me. You hear it over and over again when people have these experiences where they've just, they've chopped the connection, they've shut the door and they've moved on. And this can be a shamanic thing, or it can just be an emotional thing. Like, I've shut the door on that person, that's the end of it, and I felt the pieces of myself returning to me. And there is so much power in that. And that's part of the reason why we journey through the middle world, is to return to you that potent power. As a witch, we have to look after our power. We absolutely have to be very careful who we share our power with, our emotion with. It's a precious thing. It's a precious thing to be aware of the magic that's within you, to be conscious of the power that you wield, and then to be very discerning with whom you share that with. And where I come from, they take this so seriously that growing up, I could not have my hair cut by just any hairdresser. The hairdresser that cut my hair was a witch from my grandmother's coven, because she trusted that hairdresser to scoop up my hair and put it in a good place, return it to the family so they could dispose of my hair thoughtfully. We're taught not to spit on the street because it creates that tether. Somebody could walk through your spit with their shoe, and it creates this weird experience. But they're very, very, very conscious of the energy of their body parts, of their experience. And this is why in ritual space, the head is covered, is to create an autonomy within that experience so that you're not tethering yourself to something else in the process. You're lifting your head to guard it, because you are going to go through a space where you're going to be cutting those cords, and you don't want to regain new cords. You don't want to accept any more emotional tethers and experiences. You don't want to face someone in the middle world that looks at you and goes, you're like, no, bitch, you're going, like, you're done. And it's one of those, it's such a cathartic experience to repeat the word over and over again because it's so relevant here in this context. But it's such a powerful experience, and knowing how to walk away from that, preserving the energetic integrity of the witch that you are, is something that we must all speak on a little bit more. And perhaps we will do a little something like that in the coming weeks to preserve the energetic integrity. You have your Coven crystals that can actually assist you from preserving your energetic integrity. Not from, but for. So we will speak on that a little bit more. Anyone else would like to speak on the subject of initiation? Any experiences, thoughts, opinions, feelings? Who would like to go?
I had some pretty big experiences, feelings, thoughts. So my initiation was really intense. I went outside with my mum. So India is also in the Coven. We spent 2 days out in the middle of a national park where we camped. We had no electricity. We had just like a little fire and our tent, and that was us. From the minute we got there, we were surrounded by wildlife in a way that I'm somebody who attracts a lot of animals. I have a great connection with animals. I have never seen that many animals in my life. We had lizards coming to visit us. We had kookaburras. We had kangaroos. We had wallabies. We had shy little kookaburras. We had birds bringing us their babies to come and have a look, like baby lorikeets. Everything was there while we were there. It was insane. We were the only people in our little section. We had like a section of like 3 or 4 areas where there were tents that could be there, where we were the only people there. We had set up our own like energetic kind of like back off barrier where we were like, this is our spot. Please don't come here. We're doing a thing. The kangaroos during our initiation ringed that area in a perfect circle. And then they all laid down and would not move until our initiation was over.
Oh my God.
The kookaburra tried to steal our initiation food as we were trying to get it cooking on the barbecue. And I looked him in the eye. I was like, listen, I haven't eaten 24 hours. That's my chicken. I will fight you for my chicken. And it was this wonderful duality where there was 2 kookaburras, there was 2 of us. There were these 2 lizards, there were 2 of us. When we got there, we jumped straight into the river because it was so hot. Like we just stripped off and jumped into the river and were washing ourselves in the Hawkesbury River, being like, oh my God, it was so hot. My car broke down on the way and then still managed to get there and still managed to get us back home. It was very intense. And then the night after, like we finished our initiation, it was just after 9, I think it was, at night that we had just finished. And then we went to go have our shower, and on the way, the male leader of the kangaroos was out the front blocking the girls' bathroom. And he was just standing there. And I was like, oh. And my mum was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. He can have the bathroom. I will wait. And I was like, no, but we have to shower. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. She's like, don't, it's going to kill you. I'm like, it's going to be okay. I'm like skirting around, and he kind of like took my measure, looked at me. Then he went back down on all 4s and just hopped back over to his little group. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I can shower now. We showered, we cleansed, we put on our little cotton slip dresses. We got back down, we ate, we were having a good time, and we realized that we had dropped that energetic back off barrier in our like excitement. And these guys just pulled up in this like 4-wheel drive ute thing, and they went to park and put their tents next to us. They took one look at us, and we had all of these candles, bones, feathers, paraphernalia, like all over these tables. It looked like from a movie scene, you know, when you walk in and there's like herbs sprinkled everywhere and there's stuff hanging from the ceilings. That's what it looked like. And we're like covered in like white paint, and I'm pretty sure we looked terrifying, because he looked at us and he was like, I don't know. And then he came over to ask if we knew where the firewood was, and he just looked at our table, and he was like, you could see him just trying to keep this really straight face, and he was gone. Like 15 minutes tops, he was gone. He was out of there. And we were like, oh man. And then I lost my keepsake the very next morning. So the very next morning I was we were packing the car, and there was like a stampede of kangaroos because somebody had driven around with a dog and scared all the kangaroos. They went past the car, over the car, past us. I brushed up against one by like this much. It was amazing. And then somewhere in all of that kerfuffle, my keepsake ring fell off, and I didn't notice until we had packed everything away. And then we proceeded to spend like 40 minutes looking for it. Couldn't find it. Came home absolutely devastated. And then my Coven crystal ended up being my keepsake instead. So I wore it everywhere. Post-initiation, I had my head wrapped for like 7 days because I couldn't unwrap it without like migraines, pain. I was like seeing flashes out of the corner of my eye. I was having like all of these really intense experiences. I had to sleep with my Coven crystal because I kept having nightmares. So I had to hold it and go to sleep with it and be like, okay, I'm going to be all right because I have my Coven crystal. It's going to be fine. And then eventually that started to like back off. Mine was pretty intense.
And I love that your Coven crystal isn't a small little thing that most people would wear. It's like, it's sizable. It's chunky. Like most people would be like, what do you mean you wear that?
Yeah. Like I have to hold mine like this. Like I can't. Yeah, it's big.
Oh gosh, that is an experience. That's what happens when you do ritual outdoors. All of my previous rites of passage have been like in the wilds. My previous Coven and I, we used to book out an entire tier of a very rugged landscape that's right up in the forest that has a river running through it. And we book both of the tiers, one side by side. That means that no one's entitled to drive up. So we have the whole place to ourselves. And it's always in May, and it's freaking freezing cold. And there is so much nature around, and you just have the space to, you know, beat the drum and, you know, burn the fires, and like the weather is wild. And it's always, I think, ritual rites of passage that take place in nature are most challenging because weather is always unpredictable. Even when it says it's supposed to be very clear, it could actually, you know, build up a squally rain. And
it was a 40-degree day, and it rained in the middle of our initiation, like icy cold water running down us. My candle went whoosh up and like nearly burnt our entire table. It was
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Oh, it sounds incredible. And your mum, you painted a beautiful picture too. I could just see it. I could just see the layout. I could just see the guy just innocently coming to camp, and he was going to park up next to you. And
my mum doesn't do things in halves. So she painted me from head to toe. I painted her. We were covered in oil from like here to our toes. Everything was covered. Looked like monsters.
Hashtag witch life. That's
yes, absolutely.
I wish I could know what the guy was thinking when he saw you. Oh my God.
He said he was thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to murder me. I am the next sacrifice."
Yeah, I know what he might have been thinking. I'm just gonna this would be top 10. The White Walkers.
Yes. He was like, "That's it. I'm done. These guys." And you can see that he clearly the short straw. Like it was him and a mate, and he drew the short straw to come and ask us about the firewood.
I love it. I love it so much. Oh, it's different, isn't it? A rite of passage is
It
good
was.
stuff. I've had some beautiful experiences where, like I've said, we've booked out entire tiers, and there was a malfunction one year, and only one tier was booked, not two. Now, you don't quite understand because I'm not painting the picture here properly. The place that we went to was Davies Creek National Park, and this place was coveted. It's booked out 6 months in advance. So when the 6-month period comes up, you have to wait until midnight to book these campsites. And so it's all very cunning and, you know, and the responsibility fell on one of my beautiful Coven sisters. And on the day that we were due to depart, she said, I've made a terrible mistake. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I've only booked one campsite. Now, they're pretty big campsites. You can't see the other campsite from where you are. It's very private, but still, someone's up on your tier. So they can just walk in if they want to. And we thought we're just going to have to make do with this. But because our rituals are quite loud and drums are used, multiple shamanic drums are used, like blood-curdling screams can be heard.
Yeah.
This beautiful old man was camping in his RV, his brand new RV. He was so proud of it. And he was just him. He was waiting for his wife to show up. She would be there in 2 days' time, and they had another family attending. It was all very lovely. Poor guy drew such the short straw by parking next to us. And we just decided that we were going to do our thing. We went to the very top of the waterfall, the most rugged part of this area, because it's the one that's most available at times. It's a very challenging landscape. And what is ritual? What is initiation without these challenges? And the next day, we were cooking our recovery initiation breakfast, and we realized that it wasn't the next day. We were preparing our ritual feast, and we were doing pork, and we had to put some salt into the pork, but there was no salt. Nobody remembered salt. We're a bunch of witches in the wild, and nobody bought the salt. We all looked at each other very confused, like thinking, so I huddle over to this fella, and I was like, would you happen to have any salt that we could borrow? And he said, oh yeah, absolutely, like really friendly guy. And he's like, hey, before you go, did you notice any like weird, like wild drumming? And I was looking at my Coven sister, she was looking at me, and she's like, yeah, that was us. We were playing a bit of music. He's like, oh, thank God. I was watching the scariest movie, and then I hear this blood-curdling scream and these drums being beat, and we're like, oh, I'm so sorry we scared you. We're doing that again tonight. He's like, good to know. always a fun experience. Every outdoor ritual, every single one, always a really fun experience. And it's for this reason that I like to do my rituals indoors these days.
It's not wild enough.
It's
always
too much
someone, they
sometimes.
always find.
Oh my goodness. Now, would anyone else like to say anything on initiation? Do you have a thought that you would like to share, an experience that you would like to add to the collective pool of experiences? Anybody?
I can just quickly say that my journey to the underworld was wonderful. It was very dark. Obviously, I actually saw the roots of the tree, and the roots of the tree were very moist, and the dirt smelled delicious. And I was really, I guess, very anxious to see my spirit animal. And so I kept wanting to see, and first I saw like an owl, and I said, you know, are you my spirit animal? No. And I saw like this whole array of animals, and finally I started walking, and I would move the roots out of the way so that I could walk through this darkness. And I moved like a big root, and I saw a deer. And so I said, oh, are you my spirit animal? And he said, no. And so I kept getting all these no's, and then suddenly I felt this breath on my leg and the back of my leg, and I turned around, and it was my spirit animal, which was, I think somebody had a panther. Mine was a black panther, and it was just breathing, and because it was very cool and moist in the underworld, it just, I could see its breath. And it was a wonderful experience because I just walked with it through the rest of the way, and I will never ever forget that. So it was just a very beautiful thing. And yes, the middle world was very tough, very tough. So, but I also felt like I had my guides that I know I've had these guides since the moment I was born, and they were standing out in, sort of in a circle around the perimeter of the middle world, and anything that I knew I was going through, I knew I would be okay. So it was wonderful.
I have a question about that. I haven't gone through the initiation yet, but you said that you had this animal that you knew, kind of your animal from a young age, and I wonder, for those who have gone through initiation, if your experience of the animals that you encountered matched the animals that you knew were along with you, if you had the experience. Because I don't know if you had those things in your part of Brazil, Avalon, but growing up, I always had, which now I know is called barn owl here in the US, but we call Águia Mortalha in Brazil, and it's like that. And if it flies over your house, someone is gonna die. That's the thing. So I was terrified of that bird. I hate it. It was like, I was scared the crap out of me. And but I was following me around, when things happen. Then when I moved here, then someone started telling me about the concept of animal totems, and I was like, oh, owls have shown up in my dreams. I haven't seen them all around, so I think that. So now I know that should be one of my animals. But then I'm wondering, because I know we have different animals at different times. So I wonder if you guys had you confirmed the animal during initiation, or if you got new ones.
I had a bit of
an experience like that.
I had a bit of both. So my first ever big animal connection was with the falcon. And the first animal that I approached in the underworld was the falcon. And then I went from falcon to dog, and dog has always been my birth animal. We always joke at home that is me, that's dog. But after that, I just kept going through a list of things, maybe because I connect very quickly with a lot of different animals. I had lots of different animals that I very strongly connected with. I saw them all. And then I ended up with crow, which was only a very recent connection. It wasn't even a connection that I thought I had fully formed yet. And that ended up being the animal that guided me through. Actually, we thought that I was going to end up with kookaburra because we were hypothesizing. And we thought that my mum would get crow because she's very, very much connected to crow. And she didn't. She ended up with a completely different bird, which was completely mind-blowing for everyone. But I think everyone has a bit of a different experience with that. It's never you don't know what you're going to get. Somebody else got a completely different animal that made no sense to them. I think someone got a pig.
Yeah, someone got a little piglet.
Mine was a sloth.
I saw someone's pig. I saw someone's pig in the underworld, and I was like,
Really?
"Oh my god, that pig!" And then afterwards, it was really funny that their pig went up there. So I also found that really interesting, that we connected and saw each other. Some of us saw each other in the underworld and our animals in the underworld, which was really cool.
Yeah, and mine was a lizard, which is an animal that I've never worked with before.
A lizard, cool.
And it's I've written down, I completely understand why I got a lizard. It's lizards grow during their entire lifetimes and will shed their skin when they need to grow more. And so I when I saw that, I was like, aha, that makes total sense. So I was like, really, lizards? Yeah.
Mine was, I didn't expect a sloth. Normally a platypus or an owl, and then this sloth just come straight away to me. I was like, what? Where did that come from?
Oh, it's such an unusual. It is such. Oh, what's Rhiannon saying? I have to
She
go.
has to go.
Sorry, everyone. And she's off. Bye, Rhiannon. What I was going to say is it can be such an unusual interaction with totems in particular. And I'll speak on this just a little bit. When I first did my totemic journey with guided by a shaman, what had happened was I was 6 weeks pregnant with my youngest daughter. And I had this incredible emotive experience with a salmon. Now, I always thought it was really ironic that my totem be a salmon because I have anaphylaxis towards fish. Wow. So I thought to myself, this is really, really unusual. But I spent time over the next, say, couple of years researching the salmon. And I really went down the Celtic pathway to the salmon of wisdom. And there was so much beauty and so much integrity. But I still, as much as I had had that experience and as powerful as the experience was and emotive, like I had an incredible experience. I started this journey on the day on a high. I was really excited and enthusiastic. By the time I had this experience, I was stunned. It was like somebody had hit me with a stun gun. I was just standing there like catatonic, like. And it was such an incredible experience as a result of that. But I just couldn't shake this feeling that my experience had not been my own. And it wasn't until many years down the track that I sat down with the same shaman that led me through that passage. And I said, at the time I was pregnant with my daughter, and it was just, I had only just found out. And I was very conscious of this beautiful thing growing inside of me. And I didn't know she would be a girl. And I just didn't know the details. And she said, oh, it's quite possible that, the salmon was your daughter's totem. And then she explained to me that a totem, we can at times pick up on the totems of our most beloved, the ones who are in our lives. And this is another reason why we wrap our heads, so that we don't pick up on the totem of another person. That's, you might be having your ritual, inside your home, and you might have a child, you might have a lover, you might have a partner, you might have, other people might be present there. And so you can, in fact, pick up on their totem. You might not necessarily absorb their totem in the same way that I did, thinking that it was my own, but you may actually pick up on them, and they may be present as you journey through the lower world. And I sat with this, and I used to journey in the interim between, finding my salmon and deciding that the salmon didn't feel right for me. I used to go down to the underworld on a weekly basis. I'm devoted to my upper, middle, and lower world journeys. And so this is something that is a part of my, daily practice, is the journey, is connecting with my totem. And every time I would go lower world, 2 animals would be most present in my lower world. And they couldn't be further from fish, basically. And so years went by, I'm having this experience, I'm interacting with these animals, these 2 prominent animals, the entire time. And then I've gone back to have another round at this shamanic journey experience. And the shaman pulls me to the side, and she said, I know you have resistance to this, but I genuinely believe that your totem animal is a raven. And she said that to me the very, very first time. When I said, oh, I have a salmon as a totem, the salmon came through to me. She actually said on the night, I would have thought that yours was a raven. I had this feeling that yours would be a raven. And I remember turning to my friend Jordan saying, that's so fucking typical. Everyone has a raven. The raven's for everyone. Like, it's just such a typical, no. And I'm not having a raven. And yet the 2 animals that I would interact with the most was a giant forest raven and a black panther. They were both there in my sphere of consciousness every time I'd go to the lower world. And on the day that I remember just opening up that part of myself and accepting the raven as my totem animal, I got an unexpected and mysterious gift. And let me show you. I got a full raven's wing and a raven's
Wow.
skull sent to me by a woman that lives in Tasmania, where I now reside. And there are forest ravens living through the trees around me. I see dozens of them every day. Like,
Oh,
no
That's
resistance
interesting.
there. Everyone gets it.
That tale that you told is very interesting because I have been scared of the owl, like the screeching sound scared me. And I used to listen to it when I was in Brazil. Then around the time that I kind of joined a particular religion and kind of went off a different path, I stopped listening to it. The owl wasn't there anymore. A lot of my dreams and gifts were gone. And when I left, it was like within a few days of me leaving, I heard the owl again for the first time. It was like the owl came back to me. And then everything started happening again. So I understand like the resistance when I started accepting that it came back to my life. So that's interesting.
Amazing.
I wanted a crow. I wanted, a dolphin, things that I really love. And I never, ever, an owl, I wasn't particularly in my sphere. I see the deer as a beautiful, it was a stag, a very sort of male energy, but I never ever expected a Black Panther.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. It was really wonderful.
Oftentimes, this is how it's been explained to me, is that the totem comes through as a medicine, as an opposing medicine to your life situation. So the example that was given, and I still recall this, there was an instance where a woman was going through her totemic journey, and she was expecting the horse. Like, she was expecting the horse to be her totem. She was very invested in this. This was a hard-working workaholic of a woman. And what ended up coming through was, I'm trying to remember what it was. I remember the horse portion of it. I guess the animal's not necessarily important, but it was a counter to her attitudes in the everyday. It was something that was playful. It was something that, brought joy and whimsy into her life. And by her doing that totemic connection work, really connecting with the totem, it helped to even out her energetic output. So the constant workaholic, the one that would strive for every work goal, that was constantly geared towards power, work, all that kind of stuff, started working with a much softer totem, and one that really took her out of her, like that horse-like state of living, and into something that became much more nourishing to her quality of life. So she was able to lighten up. And I do believe it must have been a bird of some description. And I feel vaguely that it was a bird, something with a little levity, a little whimsy. And so I've often looked at the concept of the totem as a remedy to the situation, as a way to unlock potential within you. Particularly if you are very solid in this state of mind. There are people that are very heavy into their lives. They sit very heavy. Their life is heavy. And, in an energetic perspective. And by working with that totem, it gets you out of that constant everyday mindset. And taking it one step further too, we have our totem animal, we have our spirit animal, for instance. And there are many other totems that we will meet in our life. The panther for me is a journey totem. The raven is my soul kin. The raven goes everywhere with me. When I'm wandering around Hobart and I feel a little something weird, I tap into my raven like a crazy person in the middle of the street. I'm like, and I have a little moment. And I always find that by constantly connecting and building up that rapport, building up that relationship, it is something that will yield well. And as I was previously saying, the upper, middle, and lower world journeys are something that I do on a regular basis. More lower world, and then occasionally upper world. And I leave middle world for those times where I feel like I'm going through the waning phase of the moon and I want to do a little cleansing. It doesn't happen every lunar phase. But I always touch base with my totem. I always make a point of going to feed my totem, my raven, my panther. I go there and I feed and I sit and I interact, like patting a pet, for instance. It's nothing spiritual, but it is at the same time. And by constantly going there and nourishing that connection in the simplest of ways, asking it how its day was, you know, like you would a puppy or a pet in your home, really taking the time to go and visit it, to give it some love, to give it some food, to care for it, to take it for a ride, to take it for a run, to take it for a journey with you. These are ways that you build up a rapport with a wild animal, because make no mistake, they're not tame creatures, they're wild creatures. So you don't just look at the totem as it is, you look at the totem in the wild. What does it like to do? So for you, Tatiana, your owl, the owl is a night hunter. You know, incredible visions, and the types of deity that are associated to the owl, two come to mind. Athena is one, and Blúdhuid is another. And Blúdhuid is a Irish Celtic goddess. Her name means flower face, and she became an owl because of her so-called treachery. And of course, there's more to the story. She was turned into an owl, and that was her punishment for her treachery. And so there is such a wealth of narrative around the owl, and looking at the owl in how it lives in the wild, what it likes to eat, connecting with the reality of the animal so that you can connect with the spiritual nature of the animal is all well advised, and something that will yield well over the long term. Once you become accustomed to working with your totem, they just become a part of your everyday. You can feel that totem in different aspects. I feel my raven in some of the most unusual circumstances, and he has a very warning call. And if I can connect with that energy in the moment, what it allows me to do is remove myself from a situation very easily if I want to. The wings of a raven, I escape the situation, I escape the conversation that I might be cornered into, I escape the responsibility that I don't want to engage in, and it is a relationship that you nurture that serves you in return. In weird and wonderful ways, it serves you. So becoming aware of it and incorporating it into your daily practice. Now, one thing that I was going to do for the Coven, and this is upcoming, is during our process of our exploration with the earth, which we are doing right now, and we've touched on altars as part of the earth exploration. But what we are going to be doing now is creating simple daily practice rituals. And daily practice needn't be something that is considered cumbersome. Like, the idea of daily practice is to keep you connected and nourished spiritually each and every day. And so it can be a minute long, it can be 5 minutes long, it can be an hour long, however long you want it to be. But there will be a slight structure to how we're going to do it, and then you will put your own spin on that structure. And then every day you can touch base with your deity, with your totem animal, with a divination tool that you may be working with your oracle cards or tarot cards, crystals, whatever it is that you're focusing on. If you, like Pam, are working towards a specific goal, then what you would do is every day in your morning ritual, you would be touching on that goal. You'd be lighting the candle for that goal. You would be saying the words and consistently contributing to making those manifestations come into fruition. Because it's not just one thing that we do when it comes to witchcraft. It's the layers of things that we do that presents and creates the environment for success. The concept of witchcraft is to access a power that is beyond that, which is comprehensible. And as such, we work with that every day. There will always be a time in our lives as witches where we work a ritual, where we cast a spell or a weaving. And what happens far exceeds our expectations. These moments are rare, but they do happen. They've happened to me. They will no doubt happen to you. At least once or twice in your lifetime, you'll have that. But for the most part, it's all about the layers. It's all about building the rapport. By building a rapport with your totem animal, you can call that animal into ritual space when you're working towards a goal, when you're casting a spell, when you need change to occur, or when you're calling something to you. And likewise, when you cultivate a relationship with a deity, the same can occur. You go to that ritual space, you open up that space, you cast your spell, and you call upon the aid of your deity. And by doing so, and consistently, what happens is something really beautiful, because you've spent the time connecting with your totem animal honoring it each and every day, you've built up a rapport. You're friends, you're connected, you're intimate with the other. Same thing as a spirit guide, an ancestor, and a deity. If you take the time to build up that rapport, when you call, they will come. And when you speak, they will listen. And when you ask for help, they will help you, because you're the one that's remembering them. You're the one that's feeding them. You're the one that's honoring them each and every day through daily practice. And that is the space in which we do all of that work, is within the context of daily practice. And so daily practice can be one of the most crucial aspects. There are witches that seldom do a full moon ritual or a new moon ritual, but they do not skip a daily practice. A daily practice can also be something that you take away with you. Let's say on a morning where nothing's going right and you can't get to your altar and you can't light those candles, you're so familiar with the space of your altar, of your candles. You're so familiar with the process of striking that match, lighting that candle, speaking to your gods, that you take 5 minutes in a parking lot somewhere, you close your eyes, you bring yourself spiritually to your altar, and you have your daily practice in a very unique way, but in a way that still honors the process of daily practice. So it's never anything that is supposed to be ultra rigid. It is something that is considered to be fluid and dynamic. And a daily practice will change from season to season. As your needs and circumstances change, so too will the daily practice, your style of daily practice. But there will be things that will remain the same. You will always connect to the integrity of your witch self. You will always connect with your totem. You will always connect with your deity, should you choose to work with one of these, mind you. And that's the beauty of it. They're the staples, is that there will always be room for connection. And there is one thing that has become so apparent to me over the years of doing all of this spirit work, all of this work with deity, is that I don't need to ask for my deity for things every day, every week, every month, even every year. There are times where I find myself going through, processes that are shifting, where energy is shifting and I'm going through transitional phases. And then I might do a working with my deity to help me through that transitional phase, or to bring something into my life, or to remove something. But because I don't call on them often, but I consistently honor them, I've never been let down. I have never, ever been let down. And that's the difference between, the witch that honors the path and the witch that's just playing. They're just playing at the path, they're experimenting. It's a very different circumstance. When you take your practice of a witch seriously and you do that work each and every day, you will never regret it. You will never look back. You will never, ever be disappointed. You just won't. I struggle to find a single witch that I know that has ever been disappointed by a deity that they have been feeding for years and years. And that's why we become devotees of specific deities. That's why we honor our ancestors. Ancestral honoring, as you will come to understand, is crucial to our longevity and our quality of life here in this incarnation. You might be holding wounds that are of ancestral nature, and so working through that by honoring and working with your ancestors, it's just another layer of spirit work. It's another layer of working with spirit. The traditional witch, which I am, I'm a traditional witch, is someone that really places great emphasis on spirit. The neo-pagan witch places great emphasis on books. The traditional witch places great emphasis on spirit, on nature, on the elements. And there is a huge misconception when it comes to folk magic and when it comes to traditional witchcraft, because traditional witchcraft can mean many things. It can mean Cornish traditional witchcraft. It can mean a witch that belongs to a tradition like myself, or it can be a witch that belongs to a family lineage. All of these mean traditional witch. And they sit on the outskirts of what is commonly referred to as neo-paganism, not necessarily the hereditary witch, but the traditional witch does. And there is a misconception in that when you're a traditional witch, you forego all the modern luxuries of a witch life. And I was saying this to a beautiful lady in the book club just the other day. It's not about replacing the lighter with a flint. It's not about focusing on that at all. It's about focusing on the fire. Whether you use a flint to light a fire, a candle, for instance, or you use a lighter, it's going to result in the same thing. And that is the birthing of a primal source of energy. And that is the fire. So the importance is actually not placed on, oh, traditional witches, they're so archaic. They, you know, they don't use matches. They don't use lighters. They drink out of, you know, wooden bowls. And it's not about that. That's missing the mark quite a bit. It's actually about placing the emphasis in practice on that which is old, that which is time honored, that which is primal. So we work with the elements in their primal form: earth, air, fire, water. We work with the spirits of our ancestors, the spirits of our totems, the spirits of the land, the spirits of place. We work our divination in cooperation with these energies that we reach for. And we do so by cultivating strong personal experiences that honors our personal narratives, our family narratives, and not relying on the personal perspectives that we oftentimes find in books. This is not to say the books are bad, because they're quite good. They can help to introduce new theories to you. But making a book the be-all and end-all of your source of experience is never going to lead you down a path that is going to be truly nourishing. You read one book, you read 10 books, you're going to find the same thing, that it's personal perspective being presented in a different way. And the author may or may not use a language that you're kindred to, that you feel connects to you, and they may, and it doesn't matter. But books serve a beautiful purpose. It's not to replace your personal experience. So rituals, like our Odin sacrifice, rites of passage, they give you the experience that people are writing about in books. They give you the opportunity to tap into the wisdom and the experience of these, you know, very pivotal moments within your craft. And then you will find that when somebody writes about initiation, you can connect with some of it, but not all of it, because your experience, having been through an initiation, having been through a 9-day sacrifice with Odin, that richness of experience, of personal experience, it brings a wealth of knowledge that goes beyond what you're going to find in a book written by another person. You already have that knowledge within you. You already have that experience. And the traditional witch will cultivate that experience by doing the work. That's what traditional witchcraft is. And that's why it's so much more like primal. It's just so much more primal. It's just that little bit more fun, and it attracts a particular type of person. Like, you're all sitting here speaking, like listening to me speak, and you've shared your thoughts and your opinions, and you take the path seriously. You're interested in the totem, Tatiana. You're interested in how the totem interacts with the person. And, you know, Rhiannon was here talking about going out in nature with her mother and having this richness of experience out in nature. And Elba was talking about her experience with Odin and how the runes didn't come, but she had this incredible experience. Like, you're not going to find it in the book. And that's a wisdom that you yourself, only you are able to cultivate that wisdom. And once that wisdom has been cultivated, no one can take it away from you. Nobody can say that it's wrong, can they? And this is how you build up your experience in the craft. So that's my little ramble, getting ready to sign off here. Thank you for allowing me to bend your ear for this length of time. I would like to pull some cards for you, as previously mentioned. If you joined later on in this live stream, then I said that I was going to pull cards from the Heal Yourself reading cards. The name of this deck just makes me shake my head, like, why call it this? Like, of all the titles. I looked at this on the shelf for so long and I thought, what a stupid title. But okay, I bought it because of the artwork, because it called to me one day. My spirit said, that one. And I actually stood there in the Crystal Ball bookstore in Cairns going, And Angie came to me and she says, are you talking to your spirits again? And I'm like, But I took this and I thought reluctantly, it was like, oh, fuck. All right. So I tried it out on my Coven up north and it turned out to be an incredible experience. So will you bear with me while I do this? I can do this in one or two ways. I can pull a card for you. Pam, you've already got one. It's card number 30, which is courage. And what I might do here is I might take a photo of the card and I'll show you so that you know that this is you. Okay, Pam? So your card number 30, courage, and I'll take a photo of the actual guidebook, because this is one that you read with the guidebook. It's not something that you would necessarily use in an oracular capacity, although you can. But I'll give you a little taste. I'll read 30 because I pulled one for Pam while she was talking. And I'll give you a little taste of what it means. So this is the layout of the book. You get the image and all you get is this little page and there's a little activity underneath. So please do bear with me. So we have here courage. Courage requires you to fearlessly, can't say it, fearlessly, thank you. Courage requires you to fearlessly stride ahead despite the challenges you are experiencing. So, whether you are afraid of success or failure, you cannot stay where you are. You need to make a decision and move forward with belief, trust, and boldness. Give it your all, no matter the outcome. Despite what you have been telling yourself, you are ready for a new adventure and another chance to prove that you have what it takes to face life's challenges. Stop investing in limitations, lack, and dysfunction. Every blessing has a challenge, and every challenge contains a blessing. You are ready to explore both. Whilst there may be difficult moments ahead, keep positive and believe that everything is going to work out for the absolute best. You are being asked to gather the courage to be who you truly are and to stand strong for your convictions. And then the action. In order for you to succeed in what you desire, you need to prepare for the challenge ahead. This is your action. Make a list of the support you need to tackle the approaching opportunities. Become aware of what or who you are afraid of. Imagine that the fear takes on the shape of a person. What does he or she look like? Look this fear in the eye. Tell it that you are willing to learn from it and master the lessons, but you are not willing to be a slave to it. Imagine loving your fear and taking steps forward. So that is the nature of this deck. It's a bit full on. Like, I think it's a bit full on. How did that feel for you, Pam?
It's intense considering what I'm going through right now and what I've been experiencing this last week, because this last week has been a lot about dealing with my self-confidence issues and dealing with my failure issues and all of that. So it's bang on.
I love it. I love it. Now I can take photos and post the description, or I can pull one and just read for you right now. It's up to you, so you can vote.
I like taking the photo and posting the so I can get to read it also myself and take on that as well.
Right,
the activity.
In which case, I'm going to pull some cards here for you all, so that at least you know that it's yours, and that way I can actually post the photos without mentioning anyone's names, and then it remains private to who you are. Great. So, Pam, you remember yours?
Yeah.
I'll have to take a photo of it. I'll fish it out and take a photo of it. This one will be for Tatiana. Pay attention to the signs.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm actually going to fish out the courage one so that we don't double up. Oh, here we go. That way we don't make any mistakes. Okay, Belinda, this one's for you. Victim consciousness. This one's a really interesting one. It's also my favorite card because look at that stunning artwork. Just look at that. It's ridiculous. Okay. Give it a shuffle, labs. Give it a shuffle. This one will be for Angela. I'm just sort of like snaking down the tiles here. There is a slight method to my madness. Ooh, selling out. Let's see what it says. It's not as bad as it sounds. I remember that.
Okay.
Jillian, this one's for you. Jillian in Queens. I hear that the Reader Studio takes place in Queens. I'm going to head there next year, perhaps.
Queens, New York, you're going to be here?
Yeah, I might be for the Reader Studio. 35. Yours is home.
Thank you.
Let's see where that takes you. Jenny Lynn. This one is yours. Self-sabotage. Okay, remember that one. Elva, this next one is yours.
Hey.
Love.
Yeah.
That's number
Thank you.
28. Make a note of that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to pull one for Kelsey and one for Rhiannon as well. Am I missing anyone? Rhiannon's is Inner Child. Angela, if you can remind her that this is hers, number 16, okay. That would be grand.
I think as well, I think we needed one for Amy.
Oh, Amy, yeah.
Amy. Okay, this one's for Kelsey. Just seems to suit her. Wild. And one for Amy. Amy's is Alchemy. Okay, so this is number 25.
Okay,
perfect,
I've written
ladies.
Down.
Thank you. That's very kind. All right. So let's just take a deep breath individually and collectively. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay, it's almost the full moon. So I would like for you in this moment to set one intention, just something that pops into your head immediately. And I'm going to go around and ask you what your intentions are. And I would like to encourage you to work with them on your altar this full moon. The full moon will be in Scorpio. You can connect with the full moon in Scorpio by using the colors black. Scorpio just digs the black. The stone labradorite is a great one for working with Scorpio energy. And Scorpio is occult. It's the mystery, the intrigue. They're a fixed water sign. So if you've got any shadow that you want to shift, they're also very snarky. Scorpios are very like, they bite. So yes, I always think of Scorpio as the brooding occult sign. So that's one of mine. It's my ascendant, it's not my primary. So the brooding occult sign, work with that. So set your intentions, write them down on a little piece of paper. You don't have to necessarily share them out loud. But if you do share them out loud, then we can hold space for you during our rituals. We can write it down on a piece of paper and put it on our altars to assist you in building up the rapport with your intentions and giving you a little bit of extra strength. So it's a nice way of doing it. So if anyone would like to share an intention, I'm happy to take note of that. Go, Tatiana.
I do. I'm working on a proposal, a grant proposal and research proposal for my doctorate degree. And I really need to get that going because I'm behind. So I would like to have that done as soon as possible because I'm late.
So Tatiana, grant proposal
and research proposal. Those are the two things. Yeah, that's a lot.
Wish you much luck. I just graduated and defended in March, so I know if I can do it, you can do it.
Thank you. What was the degree?
Mine's in public health.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so if you need any like someone to talk to or just to let me know. I'm available.
Sure, we'll do that. Thank you so much, and thank Avalon for doing that. Yeah, and guess what? My proposal for my research is that I'm studying. It kind of fits with the Coven. I'm studying spirit possession.
Yes.
No, Avalon, you might not like this. I'm actually researching Umbanda, and so not in Rio. And so I was like, Avalon might not like what the researchers have to say.
Oh, look, I'm familiar with all of the naysaying. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's because they haven't been possessed yet. So once you're possessed, you kind of know it for yourself.
But that's my dilemma, you know, like, because I'm in this circle here, and then, but I have to present the academic thing, that the academic view, you have to come as if this is not real. How do I reconcile those? It's really hard. So,
very, very interesting. Does anyone else have an intention they would like to share?
No, I think mine's going to be really simple. It's just grounding and centering, because I feel like I really need to recalibrate.
Okay, anyone else like to share an intention? Pam, I'm going to put you down because you're looking for a job at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll be, I'm starting
Sorry, Elba?
Sorry. I'm starting a pendulum healing course. So I would like, my intention is to really go deep and get as much as I can out of it.
That sounds fun.
Go deep. Okay, anyone else? Don't be afraid. No? All right, this is what I'm going to do, folks. You might be thinking, why is she ripping the paper? There's always a method to my madness, I promise you. Okay. There we go. We have here, I'm going to bring this up to you so you can see what I'm using. This is Lucky Hand. This is Lucky Hand root.
Great.
Okay, because everyone needs a little luck in their endeavors, don't they?
mm-hmm.
And then we are going to be using, Pam, this one's for you. This is a road opener oil.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Going on all of yours, but it's a nice road opener.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm lathering the oil on, but the actual dropper is so tiny, you really have to give it some. And then this is she. And this is an emergency oil. It's emergency kind of good luck, open up those doorways. When you want something in a hurry and you need it quickly, this is the good stuff. That's nice. Okay, we've got a good amount of magic there. There's always a beautiful way of doing this. This is the glow of AN because I want your workings to shine. Okay. So we've got.
It's going to point out that in Australia it's 11:11 right now.
Is it?
So I feel like that's a good sign.
Oh, 11:11, yeah.
I want they call that those like angel numbers or something like that.
Something like that. Okay. Alrighty. So then my little petition papers are all done, and they are sitting by a crown of success candle, which I seem to always have burning on my altar. And so I find that that's a really great place to put said petitions. So hot tip, purple candle, good for success, power, domination, and good amount of like good juju to it. So pop one on your altars if you have access to a purple candle. If not, you can have access to a white candle. A black candle is also good, although I don't really like working for like black candles with petition work. It's not really my cup of tea, but if it works well for you, then by all means go for it. And yeah, so fortify your intentions. You know what others are working towards, and this is part of the magic of a coven, is that we can consistently support one another in their endeavors and what they are striving towards. That's the basis of a coven. What happens to you happens to me. We share in our experiences, and I want you to succeed in every way possible. So I'm going to help you to succeed in every way possible by assisting you to present you with great information that can enrich your practice and also provide you with just that little extra magical push. If all of us can get in there and do the same thing for one another, that magic becomes really strong, and it opens up pathways and doorways within each other's lives that can be truly life-changing. So with that said and done, thank you so much, beautiful souls, for spending this morning with me, for talking with me, for sharing your experiences. It's been an absolute delight looking into your beautiful smiling faces and hearing what you have to say and hearing all about your experiences, your thoughts, filtering your questions as well, watching you build up a rapport with each other. And it just helps for us all to get to know each other a little bit better. So if anyone would like to say anything before I sign off, please do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. All right, beautiful souls. Well, take care. I will now end this live stream, and hopefully this one will be able to be uploaded to YouTube and to the Coven page then. So this will be next week's video so that many can participate in this one, because there was a lot of good stuff in here that I feel like would be really enriching to those who weren't able to make the live stream but did go through the 9-day sacrifice and also the initiation. So it would be really good to open up that channel of communication, and then they could leave comments and questions pertaining to that which have been mentioned within this video. It's a long one, but it's a good one. All right, beautiful souls, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.